Welcome to another episode of the Doctors Building Wealth podcast. Today, Kenji and I have an amazing, awesome episode planned out for you. We're going to be talking about the best real estate wealth building ideas that have come from the past year from our community. We have the most incredible community of investors who are out there doing really interesting things with real estate. They're finding all kinds of new sources of forced appreciation and ways to add value to their properties. And so today we wanted to introduce you to some of the really cool things that we've seen our students do this year from our community.
Now, we've had over 3,000 people go through our course, and as a group, it's a really high-achieving group. They're so creative and really resourceful. And so when you apply that drive, creativity, and resourcefulness to real estate, you come across a lot of great ideas. Now, this content is adapted from content that we created for our Empire Builders membership group. This is a group of alumni of our Zero to Freedom real estate course, and we go into a lot more detail in that content. We have pictures, we have numbers. Now, we're not going to be able to go into those details here, but you're still going to get a lot of value listening to this episode. These ideas are worth hundreds of thousands, if not, and there's one idea that's worth over $1 million.
Now, these are just examples from the last years. We've had many of these ideas from prior years, and it just goes to show you how creative this group is. And I have to put a plug in for the Fast Fire to Freedom Summit here, because we host this Fast Fire to Freedom Summit every single year. This year, it's going to be in September. And during that summit, we get to interview all these people from our community doing amazingly interesting things, from medical office buildings to RV parks, to buying large multi-family, lots of short-term rentals. And we get to hear all the cool things that they're doing and all the creative ways they're innovating. And so if you want to see real life examples of things like this, you definitely want to grab your free ticket to the Fast Fire to Freedom Summit.
Now, what I love about these ideas is that these are ideas that anybody can implement. You don't have to have any special skills or talents to take advantage of these ideas. So we're going to put them all out there. You guys go out and take advantage of these. Now, the first idea is buying a property, ideally a corner lot with a large backyard in a high cost of living market that has very friendly ADU laws. ADU stands for accessory dwelling unit. So one of our students bought a property like this in a city north of San Diego, so a high cost of living market. And what he did was he put an ADU on the property and he doubled the value of this property. So just here's some of the numbers here. So, and these are really rough, but he bought it for around $800,000. He put in $200,000 for the ADU, and the property is now worth over 2.1 million. And so that's not a $100,000 idea. That is $1 million idea. So, and this is something, again, that anybody can implement. And the ADU laws are set up in a way to make it so easy for you to implement and build an ADU on your property.
Yeah, I remember we were in last year in Seattle, and a lot of the Seattleites were very excited about this. There were actually people going out and buying land in the city and just kind of biding their time, because they knew that some of the laws were going to be changing, and they were going to be able to put even like double units behind their residential properties and be able to create these ADUs that were going to cash flow really significantly. And I think that's one of the keys that weren't even mentioned here yet, is he's actually cash flowing in San Diego now, and a decent cash on cash return. And he did that because he was very creative. And so many times when we start Zero to Freedom, our course, people are saying, what market should I invest in? This market doesn't work at all. Well, actually, every market can work if you're very creative like this. You can cash flow in San Diego. And I think a lot of people before listening to this would think that was impossible.
The second idea is a student who found non-standard properties that are difficult to get loans on. And so he was actually looking at all these different sites like LoopNet to look for these non-standard properties. And a non-standard property is something like a church that was turned into a fourplex. And he was able to pick up one of these churches that was already kind of in partial remodeling, almost finished, but not quite. And they weren't able to get a loan. Nobody was able to buy it because nobody else could get a loan on it. Another one was a triplex with an attached banquet hall, right? So these are unusual properties. He likes to call them unicorns. And so what was his solution, right? Again, nobody could get loans on them because they were unusual properties. And so what he did was he developed a relationship with a lender. And this lender was very creative. He could see the vision that he had for these properties. And the result, he's not just cash flowing, he's cash flowing a lot.
Yeah, I think what you're hearing is a pattern of creativity here, creativity with relationships, creativity with vision. And that's really what it takes to be able to access some of these solutions we're talking about.
This next idea I really love. And again, this is something that anybody can implement. This is a student who bought a 6-bedroom home, but it had a septic tank that was only rated for 3 bedrooms. And if you know anything about septic tanks and selling and renting properties, you can only sell or rent properties for the amount of bedrooms that the septic tank is rated for. So again, this was rated for a 3-bedroom. So this property was listed as a 3-bedroom. So in this market, people were looking for larger properties. They were looking for 5 bedrooms, 6 bedrooms. So because this was listed as a 3-bedroom, everybody missed this property. This didn't show up on any of the filters because everybody was filtering out properties that were smaller than 3 bedrooms, right? So what the student did was they put an offer on this property, and during the due diligence period, they realized they can connect the home to city sewer for tens of thousands of dollars. Then once they did that, this property would be a legal 6-bedroom that they could sell as a 6-bedroom. So this added hundreds of thousands of dollars of value to this property.
Yeah, I think this is one of the coolest examples I've ever seen of forced appreciation, because the forced appreciation was literally in connecting the house to the city sewer, right? And that now added 3 extra bedrooms to the house. It's not anything we've ever seen before, but very, very cool. And obviously very narrow types of properties that this would apply to. But my goodness, if you're looking for this type of property, I bet you're going to find one.
Well, not just that, you don't have to look for it. You can tell your agent to go look for this exact type of property.
Mhm.
Now, the fourth idea is someone who found a home next to a medical center that was turned into a medical office. And so these are homes that a doctor many years ago, and this is maybe, 20, 30, 40 years ago, people would buy these single family homes and work out of these homes. They would turn it into an office. And these homes have this killer location literally across the street from the hospital, maybe a block away from the hospital. And this particular home actually came with a large parking lot as well. So what the student did was they turned the office and the garage into an extra unit. And now this property has 2 units, and he's renting it as a midterm rental to healthcare professionals. And if you know anything about midterm rentals, you can typically charge higher rent for these properties. They're furnished units. They're not short-term rentals. They count as long-term rentals, but because they're furnished and they're shorter term, you can charge a lot more and generate a lot more revenue from these properties and cash flow a lot more from these properties.
I also loved how the student actually did rent by the room with this midterm rental. So it wasn't just a midterm rental for, 1 or 2 traveling nurses to use. It was actually a midterm rental with several bedrooms, and people would individually rent those bedrooms. And so the cash and cash return was pretty killer, because they did this combination of finding a place really close to the hospital, making it a midterm rental, renting by the room, and then taking this office downstairs and now making another unit. And as I remember, they were going to make that into a short-term rental too. So just to remind all of you that you have that potential of having long-term rentals and short-term rentals in the same building. And it's a really cool way to, again, be very, very creative. And that parking lot, now is a thing, an asset that can make them money as well, which is very cool.
Now, the fifth idea is a student who targeted a highly regulated short-term rental market. And this is pretty interesting because a lot of people run away from these highly regulated short-term rental markets. And if you don't know anything about short-term rentals, what it means when I say highly regulated, that means that there's a lot of restrictions on who can rent their home as a short-term rental. And in this particular market, you had to actually owner occupy the home in order to rent out your home as a short-term rental. And that's really restrictive because a lot of people don't want to live in these homes and then rent out, like, let's say, a room or a unit downstairs, or a home above the garage. Most people don't want to do that. Most people want to just have the entire home available as a short-term rental. And so what she did was she figured that if she could find a property in a highly regulated market like this, then supply would be really constrained, and and she could do really well because as long as there's good demand in this market, there was a really good demand, but limited supply. So she figured she could do well. And so what she found was she found a single family home that was in a commercially zoned area, which allowed short-term rentals. And so most of this neighborhood was residential zoned, but she found a few pockets that were commercially zoned, and she was able to find that single family home. Again, this is something that anybody can implement. Go to a highly regulated market, find those commercially zoned areas, see if that commercial zone allows short-term rentals, and then look for single family homes or homes that would be appropriate for, as a short-term rental. It doesn't have to be a single family home. I mean, it could be a multifamily as well.
Yeah, and we've seen that pattern quite a bit in our community where we've seen people going and buying multifamily, they're commercially zoned, turning them into short-term rentals. And we've even seen people taking, hotels. We just a couple episodes ago talked about motel to multifamily conversions, but we see people taking little motels and making them into short-term rental boutique hotels too, with a number of different units. And so there's a lot of ways to use commercially zoned properties to do short-term rentals in a very creative way and be able to avoid one of the big downsides of short-term rentals, which is the risk of short-term rental regulations changing. And all of a sudden you can no longer do short-term rentals in an area that you previously had purchased one. And so I think that looking for commercially zoned areas is hugely valuable for all of you out there who are interested in doing short-term rentals. Okay, those were the best real estate wealth building ideas from the past year shared with us from our community. I hope those really gave you some ideas and you can see how creativity and just looking for opportunities to increase income and decrease expenses can really lead you to see opportunity where others will have easily missed it and be able to take places and cash flow and be able to really increase your wealth with forcing appreciation in these unique properties. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.